In today's video, we're going to look at a question which seems even bizarre to even pose, and that is the global food supply chain, especially in the United States of America, currently under attack? I know it sounds crazy, like I'm wearing my tinfoil hat, but I'm going to show you some things in a moment on the shared screen which might make you kind of wonder if there's something strange and somewhat nefarious going on. Now, if you're worried about your friends and family and colleagues and everyone else, I would strongly suggest sharing this video with them today, because it's been now 9 months since I first put out a warning about the global food supply chain, farming and everything else around this. And it's really only now in the last few weeks starting to come to the forefront. If you recall, a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about cooking oil and why that would become rationed and have shortages. In fact, it was probably a month ago when I first mentioned it when I was doing my weekly walk and talk. And now it's just been announced. In fact, I didn't even know it had been announced until I was getting lots and lots of messages from friends and family members messaging me on the phone saying, have you seen this article? Cooking oil is now being rationed. Now let's look at a little bit of context first and foremost before we go into the shared screen here. And I'm going to show you some crazy stuff. We've already established that Russia is the main producer of fertilizers in the world, because they have a lot of natural gas. A lot of natural gas is often required in order for the energy input in order to make fertilizer. They are not producing as much fertilizer, or if they are, they're not exporting it to unfriendly countries. Russia's also lost perhaps 50% of their wheat crop this year, and the Ukraine is not producing as much wheat this year for obvious reasons. We also know, because I covered this last year, that the UK largest fertilizer producing factories actually closed down. They just couldn't afford to keep it going. The government subsidized it. The EU has also stopped producing in some of the plants a lot of fertilizer. So we know we also have the National Farmers Union putting out warnings saying that there isn't enough fertilizer. Some have just months left of supply, meaning a lower yield this year. A lot of farmers also haven't planted the crops they would normally plant. So that is just a bit of context for you around this. But now I just want to show you some of the things that are going on. Let's go to the shared screen here. So what we seem to have everywhere at the moment is things like this. Huge fires throughout food distribution networks, food processing plants. Let's just go through some of these. This one was the one that made me say, hold on, what's going on here? Plane crashing into food processing plant. Planes crashing into General Mills plant. Okay. Huge explosion and raging fire as plane crashes into food factory. And we'll go back to the screen in a moment and cover a lot of these. These are dozens and dozens and dozens of them. Now, I was thinking about this, and I was looking at some of the statistics around the odds of a plane crashing. I mean, it's very small. It is very, very low numbers of planes that crash, so it's very small. I then looked at the land mass in the USA and how much was just, open plains and farmland and national parks and the like, mountain regions and water. And I looked at how much was actually populated areas in cities and the like. I then looked at how much of that was actually industrial. And then I looked at how much of the industrial was actually food processing or fertilizer plants and things like that. And let me tell you, it was tiny. It was so small. And then I thought, what is the odds? And I tried to sort of computate this. What are the odds of a plane, and again, different size planes, crashing into a fertilizer plant, into a food distribution plant? I mean, it is so slim that it's even hard to try and get this as a statistic. It's tiny. So let's just go back to the screen again. So not only do we have these planes crashing into fertilizer plants, again, 2 confirmed dead after plane collides into food warehouse. And then we have all of these headlines. So Maid-Rite Steak Company fire ruled accidental. It's bizarre to me, and this is why I'm a little bit skeptical of a lot of this stuff. Because I'm looking at the headlines and then I'm looking at the result later on, and they're either being ruled accidental or it was an electrical fault. Now, I'm sure this is very normal. If I was in the insurance industry, I'd probably be able to pull up all sorts of statistics and say, this amount of food processing and industrial and chemicals and whatever else explode or set on fire each year. I'm sure that those statistics are out there. But just being a very rational, logical person, I would say, why does it keep saying cause unknown or things like that? I'm pretty sure fire brigades, firefighters, they have investigators for these things. And how often would it say cause unknown, especially in a plant like that? I would have thought that they would know the reason. They could sort of trace that and find out what the reason is. So why so many of them keep saying reason unknown is bizarre to me. You see, rationally, I would think perhaps someone is going around and starting these fires, or it's deliberate. Perhaps it's arson. You see, if that was in the news, it wouldn't make me suspicious. Right, when it's all an accident, accident unknown, and it's all these food processing plants and fertilizer plants, it makes me suspicious. If they just came out and said it's arson, there are, terrorists, or there are people going around, groups, and they're causing arson, I'd say, okay, I get that, and I probably wouldn't look into it too much. But because all of this stuff is an accident and it's a coincidence, that's what makes me look into it. Let's go back again. So what else do we have then? General Mills food processing plant catches fire, okay? Fire at California food processing plant leads to evacuations and school closures, okay? Another one. Massive fire at Salinas processing plant. 50,000 pounds of food destroyed after fire ripped through Maricopa food pantry. Rio Fresh onion warehouse damaged in fire. Commercial buildings fire in South El Paso sparks demands from residents. FBI, now this is an interesting one. FBI warns of targeted cyber attacks on food plants amid heightened coverage of fires. So look at this, they've actually come out and said the FBI warns of targeted cyber attacks. Now again, this makes me very suspicious, this headline. Firefighters work over 12 fires putting out a mill fire. Another fertilizer plant on fire. This media outlet here seems to have covered a little bit of it, but really not much in terms of what's actually going on. Fire erupts at meat processing facility. Explosion and fire reported at a feed mill. And by the way, guys, please drop in the comments below what you think is going on with all of this. East Mountain grocer closed after massive fire. Puerto Rico suffers widespread blackout after fire at a power plant. Another one, Russia's biggest chemical plant burns down in second suspicious fire in a day. Portion of Wisconsin River meats plant a total loss after overnight blaze. Bonanza Meat Company building fire. Downtown El Paso. Destruction is too great, all employees laid off after fire guts this potato chip plant. And then again, I pulled this off Twitter because this has been doing the rounds this week. Someone is just starting to track all of these. And I've also heard that Ice Age Farmer has put out a map, although I couldn't actually find that from Christian anywhere. But that's another thing, if you've got access to that, drop a link below in the comments, please. Again, someone else tracking it. I know it's a blurry image, but this is the only one that was available. Look at all this, January. It's like non-stop, all of these dates. So honestly, I'd love to know what you think is going on here. But to me, being a rational, logical human being, and looking at all of this, knowing what's been happening, knowing, the 2030 plan, you will eat the bugs and all this sort of stuff and getting rid of meat because animals and methane and there's too much CO2 emissions from animals and fertilizers, too much CO2 emissions, and all the, the documentary I covered just a few weeks back now. This seems to me very suspicious. It's a little too coincidental in my mind to be seeing all of this and just the speed of all of these things. Why are all of these headlines, food, meat in particular, distribution centers of food, fertilizers, farming-based products? It just seems a little too weird to me. So please drop your comments below, just below this video here. I would love to know what you think. And again, I'm going to cover this, something else around this week. I went to the supermarket today and it was a very strange conversation with some employees We'll come back to that later in the week if we have time. But thank you so much for watching today's video. Really appreciate you. God bless, and I will see you tomorrow.